Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thanks for joining us today for Play to Your Strengths with Libby Azzarello. The name is a lot longer than that, but I'll let her dive into it and what it all means. We've got a lot that we're going to discuss today, but I know I say this all the time, but as real estate agents, we have a million things that we do, which doing all of them is one of our superpowers in and of itself. But finding ways to leverage our time, finding ways to play into our strengths and the things that we enjoy, that is truly what we are all about at Choice. And so having this class come up as a topic only feels natural because we're all about supporting you guys and uniquely you and uniquely your business. And while we can all know that that's what we want, it can be hard to fine tune that and truly play to our own strengths. So that's what we're going to do today. Libby's going to guide us through a number of examples and thoughts, and I'm really excited about it. If you attended Libby's last session, it was one of the best ones we've had. So I'm always excited to hear what she has to say. Libby, thanks for doing this today, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction. This is something that lights me up, so I'm always excited to get to yap with you guys. And thank y'all so much for being here. I know we've had nothing going on the last couple of weeks, so it means a lot that y'all are here. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So as Kate mentioned, I've got a lot of interactive stuff in this presentation. So there's going to be times where I'll stop and whoop, um, let you guys kind of take over, so that you really get a lot out of this and walk away with something really tangible. So today we're going to talk about finding your superpower. And it sounds kind of crazy and kind of silly. It's very themed and on brand. But it's something that I love to think about because it's going to affect your personal life and your professional life. And that's something I think is really unique about real estate is that our job has the potential to be 24 hours a day. We have the potential to be emotionally involved with our transactions and our clients. Our social life kind of blends together. So we're going to talk about how you can apply this across the board. So we're going to chat about, come on, figuring out what your superpower is, and then how to use it to supercharge your productivity. And again, that's going to be personally and professionally. So even if you use this outside of real estate, which I hope you do, it should help you across the board. This will also help you to relate more smoothly to clients. If you attended my last presentation, you know how passionate I am about staying in touch with people outside of the sales cycle without being in your face. So this is another opportunity to help people and stay in touch with them without having to even mention real estate. And then, of course, as always, there are going to be times in our lives and our careers where we have to cope and do something that we don't want to do. It's hard because we've just found this exciting, life-changing superpower, and now we have to go do something that we hate. So we're going to talk about how to power through and how to, still make it to reach your goals, even if it's something that's outside of your zone of genius or your comfort zone. So as I was researching for this class, I read something that was super interesting to me. I never thought about it, but I think it's really important for us to remember as we go into New Year's resolutions and business planning time. The article mentioned that as humans, it's natural for us to say, hey, I want to be better at this, or I need to call people more. Boo. I know that one's scary. I need to be better at this, or better at lead gen, or better at, something that you're not great at. However, depending on the weakness, the article mentioned that if you give attention to your weaknesses, then you're drawing away the power from your strength, and you're left with a bunch of mediocre weaknesses that you're trying to work on, and you're ignoring your one strength that would set you apart from everybody else. So it's not to say we have to ignore everything, but if we're hard on ourselves and if we focus so much on trying to be better at every little thing, you're taking away your innate superpower. which could really power you forward. And we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but part of this is giving the opportunity to other people to help you and use their unique superpower to fill in where you can't. So again, we're not ignoring our weaknesses, but I thought that was funny to picture a bunch of little mediocre weaknesses instead of one great strength. So what is this great superpower? It's important to note that this is something that you are instead of something that you do. So you could say, I run really fast, or I'm, always on time, or, whatever. Those are actions. But something that you are innately, that you were probably born with, that, is just something that's consistent and something that's effortless for you. It's also a lens through which you see more clearly. So that's one of my favorite ways to describe it. I will go ahead and tell you that my superpower is creativity. And it allows me, if I'm not feeling something, if I put on my creativity glasses, I can get it done. It makes it fun for me. It makes it more easy. I first noticed this in the pandemic when I would look at our groceries and I would be like, we have rice and like meat and like I can't do anything with this. Like this is a nightmare. I got to go back to the store and like get all duded up and it's just going to be a nightmare. But when I put on my creativity glasses and I looked at what was in the freezer, it kind of became like chopped. I was like, okay, well, we have meat and we have rice and what can we do with this? Like it can apply to so many different areas of your life and it just makes things flow smoother. So that's another thing that you'll be able to do, hopefully, by the end of this course. Thinking about what you do when you should be doing other things. So where does your mind wander? Where do you, find yourself researching or thinking about or looking? What gives you energy and what drains you of energy? So you can look at some of your daily tasks. You can look at things your clients ask you to do or that you have to do, or errands or chores or whatever, and think about the feelings and the sensations that give you energy and what drains you of energy. And that's another good sign. I love to think about this one because people always, once you start noticing it, ask you for advice on something or send you something. And they say, this made me think of you. So going back to creativity, people will send me like people gluing pumpkins with napkins and like decorating their mantle. And they're like, I thought of you. And that's creativity. Or they'll say like, I saw this really good pun and I couldn't resist sending it to you. So that shows that wordplay and physical creativity and all of those things are what people associate with me. So my husband and I own another small business, an indoor play cafe, and we went through this process with a franchise coach to try and determine where we would be the best fit. So did we want to own a car dealership? Did we want to own a painting company? And they did a lot of personality work with us. And this was one of the exercises that they made us do. And of course, I wanted to pass out when she first suggested it, but it ended up being one of the most uplifting and helpful exercises that I've done personally and professionally. So she asked us to reach out to our board of directors. So, couple 8, 10 close friends, more or less, and ask how they would describe you in 3 words. And seeing the differences, seeing what people, thought of and came up with, but also seeing the similarities was really eye-opening. So I took all of the text messages and I wrote them all down in my journal because I'm a nerd. And I looked at all the times the words kept coming up that were the same. Or, it was also just nice to see the nice things people think about you. But that was really, really helpful to see it all spelled out. And then it became very clear, not only what I thought I was good at, but what other people did as well. Another thing to consider is when things are in flow or when they're coming really easily to you, pause and reflect on the skills and qualities that are a part of that activity. So even if you've planned a day of showings with like the perfect amount of errands peppered in, or you have a free day and you're doing stuff at home, like what is it for you, or when you're working on something in your business that just goes really easily? What skills and what qualities are a part of that activity? And then lastly, what is your gut reaction in crisis or problem solving? So if you guys follow me on social media or anything like that, you saw we just had a tree fall through our roof about 2 months ago. And immediately my creativity kind of kicked into play. I started thinking about all the people I could call and like how we could stay somewhere else while the work was being done. Um, Crisis and panic kind of give you a different ability to see your true self, whether that's good or bad, whether you like it or not. It shows your skills. Another story that I love to tell when talking about this particular item is when we first opened our new business, we were working on hiring people and we hired one gal to close for us. And locking the door is just always kind of like a, did I leave my iron on situation? And we had had a new hire and she was supposed to lock up while we were at our daughter's ballet recital. And she texted us and said, there's something wrong with the door. I can't get it locked. So our business is 40 minutes away. So my husband packed up and drove 40 minutes, locked the door, and drove all the way back. Flash forward, this happened to me the next night. I couldn't get the door locked. And so immediately my brain said, hey, the back door locks automatically. So if you lock the front door, walk through the play space, you can go out the back and everything will be locked. So creativity for me is more than just like painting a canvas. It's problem solving and really thinking outside the box. So again, crisis and problem solving can really bring that up for you, what your innate skill is. So these are just some examples of what I mean when it's something that you are instead of something you do. These are just a few examples of everything that is out there, but somebody who's empathetic, decisive, loves to learn. Some people are really, really great researchers and they find themselves down different rabbit holes and they know all this random information about everything. Good in a crisis, motivator, connector. So you can see all of these things would be helpful to friends and clients, even outside of a transaction. If you're good in a crisis, someone's going to call you and say, hey, I really don't know what to do right now, but I have a leak, and you're their first call. Or I need to buy my mother-in-law a present. What would you suggest? I need to decorate my living room. Where should I shop? You know, those types of things create connection with clients well after you've worked with them. So now that you hopefully have a little bit of a better idea of what your superpower is, we're going to talk about how to apply it and how to keep yourself going. Again, kind of leading into that even when you don't want to. So there are two ways that came to mind when I thought about applying your superpower. And one of them is very literally. And when I looked at this list, it looked to me like things that lit me up and were fun, but sometimes I didn't give myself permission to do them during the workday because it didn't feel like work. But as I mentioned before, real estate is one of those things that is not on and off the clock. We do not clock out. We do not stop what we're doing throughout the week. So we are at a higher risk of burnout. And we'll talk a little bit about that later too. So this list is going to be something as you work on your superpower and work on your ideas. These things are going to help save you from burnout. And they're also going to be things that you find fun organically, which is going to bring you the energy that you need to keep doing the business stuff. So when thinking about creativity, these are just some random ideas. I could complete and share DIY projects, which is actually one of the biggest like traffic drivers to my social media. When I post houses, people are like, okay. But when I post, doing something educational in my house or sharing a new project, innately, I'm like, no one wants to see my nursery. And then I share it and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is great. Still home related, home decor, holiday decor, whatever. That lights me up and gives me energy, but it's also something that people want to see. Connecting to other creatives. I think that a lot of times people forget that whatever you love to do, there could be clients within that. So whether you're building relationships with other people who love to needlepoint or you're attending a networking group, people are people, and it helps to get to meet people that you love and people that you gel with. Expanding my skill set. Again, it feels silly to think about like learning how to use a drill during the workday. But we all left the work world for a reason. We left the corporate world for a reason. So why not learn something that you could eventually share with somebody else in your network? Teaching classes has been one of the things that has really excited me and let me meet a whole bunch of people at the same time. I love to teach professional development classes like this, but also classes that are creative. So I teach needlepoint classes. I teach classes at our play space for all types of different gift wrapping classes and things like that. I often offer design advice to my clients, and that's one of those things that they do come to me for, which is really fun. And then helping them with issues in their lives. So a lot of my clients are small business owners too. And so they'll call me and they'll say, hey, do you have an hour to chat? And I'll bounce ideas off of them. My brainstorming powers are great. Execution, not so much. So it's really fun for me to get to use that side of my creativity as well. So when you think about this fuel yourself, the literal list, these are all fun activities that might not seem like work, but ultimately will help you avoid burnout and be considered work in the long run. So applying your skills more figuratively, I'm a problem solver, which I mentioned. People don't necessarily think of that when it comes to creativity, but I am a great problem solver. I can give advice from a big picture standpoint, which is really powerful in creativity. A lot of times people get really into the details, which can be a superpower too. So just figuring out where you fall on that scale is really helpful. I can see connections where other people don't. So whether that means like the next point, bringing vendors together, introducing different people, thinking about different loan types, thinking about how to structure an offer, thinking about, all of these different items that could help my clients or my personal friends and family. I can see different connections because I have that big picture view. Constructing creative offers. I actually got complimented on this several times during the pandemic, so I'm very proud of that. But when you look at a black and white piece of paper that was created by a bunch of, I call, as I say, bored attorneys, very technical, very little wiggle room, very little creativity. But I started to come up with ways that we could negotiate and that we could meet in the middle, different ways to structure closing costs and 2-1 buy downs and different things like that. While they still sound technical, are still creative applications. So it still kind of got my brain going. And then negotiating and managing timelines. Again, that is something that can really stress people out who live in the day-to-day, which is actually going to be 90% of our clients. I can zoom out and I can help them see the whole timeline, how they could possibly slice and dice it to get where they're going in a good way. So now we'll go into a little bit about motivation and figuring out your motivation style and also what you need to power through when you're dealing with something that you don't want to do or that's outside of that exciting, shiny new superpower that you thought of. So this is something that really changed my view. I am neurodivergent, so I, again, kind of tend to think a little bit differently. And I realized through research that I am motivated by interest and novelty, whereas many other people are motivated by importance. A lot of entrepreneurs think the same way, whether they're neurodivergent or not, but they tend to be motivated by interest and novelty, which are easy things to introduce, but we focus on importance instead of trying to make it something that we can get through. So this list is really great to keep handy. This is my first emergency button when I start to encounter something that I literally can't do. The first one is to make it sparkly. So this one employs your like novelty sense, it employs your five senses. So if you think about doing something that you dislike, I'm going to keep bringing up paperwork because it's something that is not my ministry. Making it sparkly could look like going to a new coffee shop, doing it outside, doing it in a different order, putting on music, different, change of environment. And then also thinking about your five senses. So again, what you see is your area that you're working in. Can you change that? If you have to sit through a boring CE class, also torture for me. Can you do something with a hot beverage, a bubbly beverage, a little snacky snack, something to get a little dopamine flowing and get a little bit of that productivity moving through your body? Sometimes people need different tactile things. So if you find yourself drumming your fingers or twirling your hair, picking your whatever face, different sensory inputs with your hands, wearing different clothes, anything like that. So thinking through those things helps make something exciting that normally wouldn't be. The next thing is to make it speedy. And I use timers nearly every day of my life. I use them in two different ways. So when I set a timer, often it's to get started on something. So if there's something I really, really don't want to do, I'll set a timer for like 10 minutes because you can do anything for 10 minutes. And once you get started, typically that motivation takes over and you just finish what you were working on, or you get distracted and go do something else productive. But again, you're kind of getting that signaling your brain that there's, happy, exciting stuff going on. The other way that I use timers is if there's something that I desperately don't want to do, like paperwork or especially unloading the dishwasher, laundry, or, things like that. If you set a timer and then look at it afterward, it's usually pretty eye-opening because the tasks that we don't want to do feel like 10 hours long, but really took you 5 minutes. So not only does that help you with time blocking and planning out your day, it also helps you figure out, hey, this wasn't quite as bad as I thought. It'll be over in 5 minutes. I'm just going to knock it out because it feels so good. Going back to the sparkly, merging sparkly and speedy, I like to create timed playlists. So I use Spotify and I like to put enough songs on there that it gets to about 20 or 30 minutes. And that's something I do at my desk. If I know I need to focus on something, I'll put on a 20-minute playlist. I don't look at anything. I don't look at my phone or my computer elsewhere besides what I'm doing. But it just shows me don't move, don't do anything weird until this last song is over. And that just signals your brain and helps cut down on distractions. And then if I'm on the go, there's a way on your iPhone to just stop the music when the timer stops. So instead of setting an alarm, you can play whatever music you want, and then it will stop as soon as the timer ends. So it's kind of like musical chairs or something. And it just creates that sense of urgency that sometimes we need to get through something. Making things as simple as possible. So I know, again, as agents and humans, we want to try and make these intense systems and have everything flow together beautifully. But oftentimes, the simpler, the better. And again, just focusing on as much as we can, what our strengths are, simplifying things. A way that I use this in my business and my life is what I call put things where you need them. And, if you're always running out the door to showings and you forget your buyer packets, I keep them in the car because to me, that just makes more sense. I always need them anyway. I don't want to go digging in my desk for them. I have like 4 umbrellas, 3 hairbrushes for my daughter, like things in every room where I need them. You would be surprised how much a little trash can or a little hook changes your life. So just simplifying your daily routine so that you can save brain space for everything else is great, but also simplifying what you're working on, simplifying your processes, communication, and things like that. Systematic. So this one, I know we've talked in a lot of different choice classes about creating systems, but we'll talk a little bit about this next. Systems are a way to outsource things to future you. So if you don't have the ability to hire somebody or come up with a plan to hand off to someone else, creating systems is a way to take pressure off of yourself, allow you to focus on your strengths, but also be getting things done in the meantime that you don't want to do. So most boring tasks that people find, most, repetitive things are very easy to systematize. That's a big word. And then lastly, social. So I know some people are introverts. I can't relate, as you can tell. But making something social is actually a fantastic way to hold yourself accountable. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but the concept that I'll introduce is called body doubling. And what that means is you're just doing something in the same space that somebody else is doing something. So y'all are both, you may not be doing the same thing. You may not be working on the same thing. You may not even be in the same industry, but just having another productive being beside you can hold you accountable to finishing whatever it is that you need to finish. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts. These concepts were introduced by a writer named Gretchen Rubin, and she wrote The Happiness Project. And since then, she's also written several books about habits and motivation. So what we're going to do in this next section is figure out your style of motivation and what you individually need to, again, power through what you don't want to do. So there are 4 types of motivation that the average person will encounter. And I guarantee you're going to think of someone else before you think of what yourself. Yes, Madison, fantastic. You're going to think of somebody else, your spouse or your clients, before you think of yourself. But I challenge you to look for yourself in these 2. This is another great thing. If you do see your clients or friends, you can understand how to motivate them as well. We all have those clients that we just can't get where they need to go. So these will also help them. Upholders, AKA my husband, readily respond to outer and inner expectations. So they can pay a parking ticket on time without worrying about there being a fine or that it's unfair or silly. They can go to the gym simply because they said they were going to go to the gym. Imagine that. They can meet work deadlines. They can hold personal responsibility to themselves. Congratulations. Good for you guys. Their little quote is what, like it's hard. It's just organically, that's how their brain works. Obligers, which are the largest part of the population, of which I am one, meet outer expectations, but struggle to meet inner expectations. So I will do anything for my clients. I would not miss a coffee date, but if I were going to take a walk by myself, it would get pushed off till the 35th of November. I will find other ways to help other people. I would never let anyone else down, I'll let myself down anytime. It's fine. Um, ooh. Questioners, this is my dad. They question all expectations and they respond to an expectation only if it makes sense. So they only meet inner expectations and they defy outer expectations. So I imagine there are a lot of entrepreneurs and realtors that are questioners who did not like having a boss tell them what to do, and that did not make sense to them. They have to figure out their own way to justify it to themselves. Rebels are the trickiest, I think, of all, both for themselves and for other people to try and motivate and figure out. They resist all expectations, outer and inner expectations alike. Telling them what to do makes them less likely to do it, even if they want to do it. So many toddlers are rebels, you'll find. They might move into something else along the way, but especially if you tell somebody what to do, it's just not the answer. You can't make me do it, and neither can I. So again, they struggle too, but it's the hardest to find their motivation. So as an upholder, they just want to know what should be done. They will thrive using processes. They will thrive with a checklist. They love to know what's expected of them. These are your clients that have you on the phone 10 weeks before closing, wanting to know what time to be there and, these types of things. So setting expectations for them is actually really welcomed and helpful to motivate them because that's how they're motivated. Obligers need accountability. So for me, if I were to walk, as I told you, not going to do it alone. But if I were to meet you for a walk, I would not miss it. It would go in my planner. It would get done. That's why for me, working together with other people at a coffee shop, things like that, really work for me because I won't let you down. Questioners want justifications. So these are the people that should probably read through the entire contract and figure out how to phrase it in their own way to their clients. These are the type of people that should understand things fully so that they can explain things in a way that makes sense to them and that they're more likely to do it. What came to mind when I thought about questioners, I tend to lead a little bit this way, is the professional services disclosure. I always dread filling that out because it's got all those little check boxes and you have to write who ordered what, and it's always stressful. But as soon as you run into a situation, and I was like, why do I have to do this? This is crazy. As soon as you run into a situation where someone waived a termite inspection and then 3 years later they got termites and you didn't fill that out, then you'll understand why that's important. So sometimes questioners have to understand things in their own way to make it really motivate them to do something. And then rebels want freedom to do something their own way. So that might even mean switching the order that you do something, changing how you explain something to people. You know, I don't know, whatever makes sense in your brain that you can do. You want the freedom to do it your own way. So figuring out what you need to feel good about a decision and actually complete a task is exactly what you're going to need to do. Let's see, we have another question up here. Let's see. I know, it is so annoying. But sometimes you just got to ask the questions and then you'll understand. Okay. So this I'm not going to spend too much time on because I know we've talked about outsourcing a lot. But every good superhero has a sidekick. And I learned about a really helpful formula. Some of you may have already done this, but thinking about the cost and loss of outsourcing. So to me, outsourcing is often mindset in two ways. So if there's a task that you really can't do, you could either pay someone to do it for you, or you could use a creative solution to figure out another way to do it, which we'll talk about in a second. But the mindset piece of it, I was in a course and they told us to figure out your average sale price and your cadence in a month, and then calculate a sample commission. So an example would be, I sell 2 houses a month and my average commission is blank. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out how much more you could make if you only focused on your superpower instead of the weaknesses, or instead of, hey, I don't want to pay somebody. So just imagine hiring someone for 20 hours a week at $25 an hour. That's about $2,000. So if you guys can think of this off the top of your head, I'm going to give you just a minute to calculate the potential income that you could get from hiring somebody or from outsourcing and giving someone else the chance to use their strength. So just think about your average sale price roughly, and then how many homes you sell in a month. And then from there, calculate a sample commission in your own mind. We don't have to know the numbers because I don't want to talk about commission, but just kind of think about your income per month and what that could look like. I'll give you guys a minute. And also, if you want to write this down and do it later, that's also totally fine. I know math is hard, especially before 11 a.m. Give you guys one more minute. Okay, I'm really bad at waiting, so I'm just gonna start talking. You guys can keep working if you want to, or feel free to ask any questions, or I have my contact information. You can always message me after. But the main point of this exercise is just to shift your mindset from losing, because so many of us think, I'm gonna pay somebody, I'm gonna lose $2,000. I'm gonna pay somebody that amount of money. And it sounds really scary because where is that gonna come from? What is this gonna look like? But if you think about it instead of what you could gain, so if you could gain 2 extra transactions a month by hiring somebody and by outsourcing and releasing the guilt of doing something that you're not great at, thinking of that mindset shift is really where the power is rather than the actual number. But for me, it was really cool to see the number because I was like, if I make this much, I could easily pay somebody to do what they're really great at. So if the $2,000 is not a plan for you, that is absolutely fine too. If outsourcing either logistically or financially is not in the cards, there are still a lot of ways that you can still focus on your superpower and outsource, even without the traditional sense. So Kate is our queen of AI integrations. AI is a fantastic partner to do some administrative tasks, to do things that, brainstorming, or things like, sometimes I find it's easier for me to edit something than to create it from scratch. So AI is a great tool to start jumping off. And often that is what really holds us up on a task that we don't want to do. We've talked about body doubling a little bit, but again, that is just the act of working alongside somebody else. I even use my daughter for this. If I don't want to put away the dishes, I have her put away the silverware. And then I'm like, well, she's working, I'm working, we're all getting this done together. It's just a different vibe. And you can even do this in a coffee shop. There are virtual ways to do it. There are little rooms online where you can just put your head down and everyone's working and you just get that vibe. I do think that's something that we miss as individuals when we leave the corporate world. Just the sense of everyone's here to work, we're going to get it done, and then we can go do something fun. So body doubling is just working in the same space as somebody else. Partnering up with a like-minded or not agent. I partner a lot with my friend Maggie, and she is fantastic at paperwork. Again, that is not the fruit of my spirit. I am not a paperwork girl, but she has right now the time and the energy and the space to work on that. But she can't really leave right now to go show buyers. So we kind of work back and forth in that way. And that's worked really well for us. Teaming up with your spouse or a friend or even an entrepreneur outside of our industry can be super helpful. I'm in several mastermind groups, and it has shocked me to find that there are people who really enjoy Excel. They excel at Excel. My husband asked one time where my CRM was, and I said, it's in a note on my phone. And he said, well, I'll create you a little spreadsheet, and it can do all of this stuff. And I am convinced Excel can fold your laundry for you if you know the right formulas. So there are people out there who truly enjoy the things that you dislike and would be happy to jump in and give you advice or help you. Scheduling ahead of time or batching stuff is another way to beat those inane tasks that you hate. And again, that's a way to outsource it to your future self. So maybe right now you don't have the mental capacity or the time to do something, but you can set a timer, set a reminder. You can schedule emails to go out ahead of time. You can schedule social media posts. You can look at the way that your business flows throughout the year and say, in July, I can create all new email campaigns, but I can't do that right now. So things that you can do are, also passing them off to your future self. Another fun hint, really quick, going back to the 4 tendencies, obligers can also use themselves as accountability in the future. So even if you can't do something as someone who needs external accountability, you can also say, this will be a gift to future me. Future me is depending on current me. I got to do this. So there are all kinds of ways that you can hack your motivation with that as well. Sometimes we just need to eliminate the task as a whole. If it is something that we have put off a million billion times, it keeps showing up on our to-do list, it's either too big of a task or it's something that is just not meant for us. And again, that does not include things that you have to do. But, a lot of times as agents, we're like, I really got to get on video and I really got to, create these email campaigns and these Facebook ads. And you keep putting it off and it's just not your cup of tea. That's a good sign that it won't be sustainable for you in the future and it will remain difficult. So by eliminating it as a whole, you just give yourself that freedom to say, I'm going to find something that really, really fits with my superpower and not slog through it. I also hired an intern at one point, which was interesting. I was going on maternity leave and I just needed more marketing help. There are, of course, different legalities and restrictions with different schools and different programs, but I have found that they really like to hear from entrepreneurs. And real estate is something that a lot of college students may not even consider, but it's really the most affordable way to start your own business. So I think it's really interesting to explore, even if it's just, a friend's kid that you want to have to organize your database. There's all types of reasons why we put off a task, and figuring out what those reasons are is really important. And interns are often excited to do these types of things, or it's something that they're studying or they're good at. I've had really great luck with video interns. So like people from different media programs at schools, or, they're all over the TikToks and the social medias. So, there's some really great opportunity there if you have the capacity to take somebody on in a different way. Okay. So one of the most important things to think about if you're considering outsourcing is to realize, oh, there comes my dog, to realize that you are giving somebody the chance to use their unique superpower. So, like I mentioned before, there are people out there, believe it or not, who love spreadsheets. There are people who love numbers. There are people who are great with technology. There are people who are social people. And if you think about and reframe again, outsourcing as giving a gift to somebody else, it takes away the guilt of thinking, I'm not good at this. I have to pay someone to do it. I have to pay them a lot. Like it's easy to get down a rabbit hole of negativity instead of focusing on I'm doing what I'm really great at and I'm giving somebody else the joy and the flow of doing what they're really good at. And then lastly, we've talked a little bit about burnout, but watching your fuel tank is one of the most important things to consider once you know your superpower, because you're going to find that when you're tired, when you're uninspired, when you're frustrated, your superpower kind of starts to dim. So when I get frustrated or tired or have a lack mentality, my creativity kind of like goes downhill. It's like that Santa cheer power from the Christmas movie. And I have to do things to bring myself back up to the level that I want to be at. But not watching your fuel tank, trying to do too many things that are outside of your zone of genius can really cause burnout. I noticed this when we first opened our small business. I was there on my feet, talking to people, staying in one place behind a desk, mopping, like doing things that I was not good at. And I kept feeling I'm doing something I'm not good at. I'm doing something I'm not good at. And when my husband and I shifted around our responsibilities, we realized I could do all of our marketing. He could do everything on site. And it just flowed so much easier. But for a while there, I could not even like ice a cupcake. Like my creativity was in the dumpster. And it's especially hard when you don't feel your superpower because it is something that should come easily. And when it doesn't, it's really frustrating. So it's important to watch your fuel tank if it gets low. For things that cannot be outsourced for whatever reason, spread them out and limit your day. So understand which tasks are the opposite of what your strength is and spread them out and limit them as much as you can. And understand that one task you're not great or competent at is going to feel like a lot. So it's okay to just do that one thing in a day and then go do something else to inspire you or to get back in touch with your superpower. Try and spread them out as much as possible, and try to, again, limit the pressure that you put on yourself when you're working through the day. And then going back to those magic S strategies and then your literal fuel list that we talked about earlier, those things are kind of corporate term, low-hanging fruit that you can always access to give yourself a little boost. So hopefully that list, you guys will continue to build that instant applications of your superpower that will give you little wins. And that is all I have for you guys. So go forth and save the world and your sanity. Does anybody have any questions or want to brainstorm at all in the chat or anything like that?
I'll
This
ask a
was
question.
amazing. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
It was amazing.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I have a question about myself. When you were talking about the different, the 4 different like personalities,
Yeah.
and I didn't used to be a rebel, but I have become a rebel. So what do you think would cause somebody to become a rebel?
That is such a fun question. I think because I have rebellious tendencies, and I think it's when did you come from like a corporate background or like
Absolutely. Yes.
I feel like when you're just told, like, there's this one little YouTube video I watch. He goes, I'm tired of making deals. I'm not good at making, like, you just get overwhelmed and you get someone's told you what to do for so long that it makes sense that you want to go to the absolute other end of the spectrum. So my guess would be a lot of outer expectations put on you for a long time. And now that you're finally the boss, it's exciting. A helpful quote that I heard was, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is nobody tells you what to do, but the worst thing about being an entrepreneur is that nobody tells you what to do. So, there's two sides to it, but now that you have the freedom, you probably want to exercise it as much as possible.
I can see that. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a personality test. Yes, it's a good one. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, but what do I want to do? Or what should I do? I'm always looking for the recipe for real estate. I said that my first couple of years. I'm like, if I do a little of this, a little of this, then everything will come smoothly. But I've realized for me, I have to be happy and I have to be like using my strengths. Otherwise, I cannot get any work done. And then also figuring out what work is to me. Once you leave a corporate background, you don't have 8 hours of work a day. I remember my first corporate job, I finished everything I needed to do in like 4 hours. And I was like, all right, guys, have a great day. And they're like, where are you going? I was like, oh, I'm done. And they're like, no, you just have to, like, I have to sit here and do what? Like, I shouldn't be penalized for finishing my stuff, but such is life, and that's why we're here. I will also try to find, I'll send them to Kate, the name of her second book. But the author was Gretchen Rubin, and it's something like The Power of Habit or something like that. But her superpower is research. So she has tons of like input from philosophers to what are the not strategists. My brain is not with me today, but like financial experts, business professionals. Like she gets a lot of different information. So everything she comes up with is unique, but also really well backed. So I'll send that out. Those were really fascinating to me, those, because I love a personality test. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining me. My email is up here and my social media. If you guys ever have questions or if you want to bounce ideas off of me, or if you want me to try and like figure out your tendency or your superpower, that's really fun for me. So happy to do it.
Thank you so much, Libby. I'll
You're
send this recording
welcome.
out when it's ready. You guys have a great day. Bye.
Hey, bye guys.